My name's Tim Hardy, and I get to try to leap from an abacus to technology in one day. There are 4 parts to what I'm going to do today. The first and the last are live. The 2 in the middle are recorded.
Tim, can you just tell us what department you're from?
There are 2 answers to that. On the surface, it's economics, but I claim to not know anything about economics. I teach accounting. And accounting just is housed in the economics department. Now, there it is.
There it is. Yeah, there you go.
Different place. This is the ADP for today. And the course that I teach and will be teaching this summer is ECAC 329, which is cost accounting. The students in the class will have already completed Econ 122, which is managerial accounting. My assumption is that they will have a basic level of understanding of Excel and that they will be using some Excel tools beyond the basic tools to complete some of the problems that they'll have assigned. The students will need to use some higher level functions to best solve the problems. They'll be expected to submit via Blackboard their proposed solution as an Excel file, and they must use Excel 2007. And as is always the case with Excel, there is no single best solution. So let's go on with the show. In this session, we are going to compare the Microsoft Excel sum function with the Microsoft Excel subtotal function. The sum function totals the values in the described range. It includes in all calculations any data that may be present in any hidden rows that are contained within the described range. It also includes in all calculations any data that may be present in any filtered rows within the described range. It is very easy to use and the most often used Excel function. The subtotal function has 2 arguments. They are the function number and the data range or ranges. The arguments are separated by a comma, and the calculations exclude any data that may be present in filtered rows within the described data range. And it may exclude any data in the calculations present in any hidden rows. Whether it excludes or not depends on the function number used. The first set of function numbers, numbers 1 through 11, and today we will use number 9, does include any data that is present in any hidden rows. But function numbers 101 through 111 excludes the data in the calculation where that data is present in any hidden row. So now, please close this window and then in Blackboard, open the choice Sum Subtotal Example. Using Microsoft Excel, we're going to record the sum function on the left side of the screen, and on the right side of the screen, we're going to record the subtotal function. In the blue areas, we are going to enter our sum functions, and we'll do so for the rows and columns for each year, for 2006, 7, and 8, and at the bottom we're going to total the years. On the right, we're going to enter the subtotal functions, and we'll do that for the rows and columns for each of the 3 years, and then we will total those at the bottom on the right-hand side. Now, the first sum function we want will be equal sum, and we will select the range of B3 through B6, and that totals 40. And we will simply copy that across for the other 3 quarters, then enter that sum function again to total the row of B3 through E3, and copy that down for the 4 areas. And then in the lower right quadrant, we will sum the entire range that is described by B3 through E6, and that will sum that entire area. Then we will copy those to the subsequent years, which avoids having to re-enter the information, and we'll do the same for the totals. Then we'll take the row totals, copy them to the subsequent years.
Cut it off.
And then we're finished with our sum functions once we have them all entered. Now we'll move to the subtotal and equal subtotal.
I think we established that you've got it.
Well, I'll have to do my last piece.
Yeah, this is what we want to get to.
Here's what the peers thought that I should include in what they see, what my assumptions are about their level of understanding going in, that ought to have an objective in the beginning, and include how they will be expected to demonstrate their use of those tools, and at the end of the show, the demo, tell them what the next step is. And maybe it would have been helpful to see it if we were zooming in on some of the data. Now, the other piece that was added to that later is apparently in the room I did that, there was a pendulum clock, which folks could detect. To me, I don't hear it because it's been there for 30 years. But so I have to go stop the clock when I do something in that room. Now, here's what the students thought. It's 11 minutes. They thought it should be split into a couple of pieces, maybe one for the sum piece and another one for the subtotal piece. And maybe at the end, add a third chunk that was showing them a real example as opposed to one where you could really see how the numbers were adding up or not, and you could do that in your head. And they too said that maybe there should be some zoom used. And here's mine. I thought I could be smoother with the mouse. I've forgotten and left it in places that it shouldn't have been. I haven't got down just how far to get that microphone away from my mouth. And that's just trying it and experimenting. Some better coordination between the mouse and the screen movements. I probably want to standardize on 800 by 600 because I tried a couple of different ones and you couldn't always see the bottom. It was a lot harder to do than I thought it was going to be, but it was a lot of fun to do. So that should take me to your questions.
What was the problem you were trying to solve?
They had no clue how to include or exclude data when it was filtered or hidden. That when you asked me to cut off the piece, that would have been clear. Let me go this way. And
I mean, if you want to go to that point,
that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Go through the 11 minutes to get to it.
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
In this session, we are going to compare the Microsoft Excel using years, which avoids having to read the range, which are the 4 cells above it. And as the sum did on the left, that totals the sum side only north and west are visible, including the hidden values.
I don't know
But
how
on
to
the
pause
subtotal
this.
side,
On the right-hand side, or left-hand side.
Oh, here?
where we,
Got it.
There.
I don't know whether you can see it or not, but I've hidden 2 of the rows, and 10 and 10 clearly is not 40. So the sum function always includes the hidden or filtered values. Here, 10 and 10, I use the function number 9, and it does not work correctly for hidden rows. But if I had used the function number 109, this would have totaled 20, and when I redisplayed the rows, it would have then totaled 40. That's the problem. What accountants do is they'll take a big set of information and want only part of it totaled, and if they use sum, they get the wrong answer. If they use subtotal correctly, they'll get the right answer. And that's the root of the problem.
You're teaching accounting, so I thought you would introduce this. The reason we need this is the government only requires that you have one set of books, so you want it to look this way if the auditor comes in, but when your boss comes in, you want it to look the other way.
Well, I wouldn't frame it quite that way, but the truth of the matter is, every company I've ever seen has 3 sets of books. One for the audit, one for the government, and one for the folks that are the owners. And it does not mean that 2 of them are incorrect. There are different assumptions, there are different things they want to know. But that's the root of the problem that is trying to address.
This is a hybrid course, so is it completely online?
I'm going to try it as hybrid, at least at the outset. This is summer school, so the game plan is, we're 6 weeks, meet twice a week, once in, once not.
So the one thing that I noticed when you were doing this was, were you keyboard shortcutting? Using keystrokes for copying and pasting?
Right.
Right, so that, when numbers start appearing and we don't know
How
what
does
you
it
did,
happen?
Yeah,
Right.
so I know it's a pain, unless they already know how to do it.
Well, I had to make an assumption here, and that was, there were 2, that this is one set, but that there would be some that preceded it, because some of these folks, to be frank with you, haven't got a clue how
That's
to
right.
use Excel.
Yep.
And there have to be some setup pieces of copy and pasting, and there are at least 6 different ways to do it.
Right.
And whatever one they find that works for them, I'm happy.
And so,
One thing that,
go ahead.
go ahead, Chris.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
One thing that I found too is that in relation to that was maybe creating separate videos, especially for those that are more basic skills, so that students that don't, already know how to use Excel, you don't have to spend the time going through how to copy and paste. And plus, as you mentioned, it takes 11 minutes to run that video. Perhaps pulling out some of the basic skills into a 5-minute video so that students that aren't familiar with Excel can spend time on those videos, and you can do kind of the material in a separate video. It is more work on your end,
Right.
but it does get them all on the same page.
Well, in my mind's eye, there would be a collection of these, and those that needed, I don't want to call it remedial, but it's almost that. Those that needed those activities can go do them, and those that don't need them don't need to bother.
I agree with Katie. I found that for students at UMBC in general, Excel seems to be this monster that they haven't had to encounter until fairly late in their career here, and I don't know why that is. And it drives me nuts. And so the challenge with hybrid courses, I think, is that since they, if anything is asynchronous, they don't have you to ask a question for when it comes to something dumb or something really rudimentary. And so you have to figure out a way of getting around that. And that can be extremely frustrating, especially if it's something simple. And so one of the things that I found with hybrid stuff is that it's the little teeny tiny things that could be the difference between something that might seem insurmountable for the students versus not, where in the classroom that just simply isn't the case because they haven't had it. And so it could be something you know, that you develop on your own, or there are plenty of links to other places that have got Excel tutorials and to say, you need to complete this, show me that you completed it, period, and just do it before to bring them all up to the same level.
Well, just three thoughts come to mind. First off, without doing it with live information on a blank file, it doesn't get them anywhere. It just doesn't. Second, I think the reason that folks don't wind up getting the Excel skills in classes is from our side, it's a lot of work as compared to some of the other tools that you can use, but then the kids are not ready when they get to the marketplace because their employers are assuming they absolutely know how the day they walk in the door. And and Marcia Croto and I have talked about the two things that the accounting students, because they're the only ones we get to deal with, that maybe we can help them be better at, are using Excel and learning how to write. When the kids, I mean, it happened at 5 minutes to noon. One of the kids in another class sent me an email and he doesn't sign it. I've refused to answer student emails when they don't sign them. I send it back to them and say, who are you? But I take your point about getting them up to speed. And it may be that I don't know how I'm going to handle that in the summer just yet. You had a question, John?
Well, you know, we've been doing this for a number of years now, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen people doing screencasts on Excel.
Yeah.
There's something going on with Excel, and I think it's starting to come to a head a little bit. I gotta believe that there's tutorials out there that can be used, but you said something, and that is you gotta make them show you that they can use it. And that's the piece that I was trying to figure out. It's like, is there anything that you could do, say using a quiz, where they can't turn in homework until they've completed the quiz, or that they have, maybe they use a free Jing tool themselves and say, look, show me that you can do the hide, copy, and paste. I mean, it's a free tool. It works on Mac and PC. Doesn't cost them any money. It's a little bit of an orientation. But if you say to them, I can't teach you what you need to know until you can show me that you know the basics, they would either have to demonstrate it to you in an asynchronous way, which maybe they do a capture,
Right.
or there's a quiz that you work out that is, you know, a follow-up to a tutorial. You know, here's Tim's 5-minute tips for the biggest gotchas in Excel that I face all the time. You have to watch this, and when you're done, you have to take this quiz, or you will not be able to turn in any homework.
The demonstration part's an interesting one because I've had students actually, you're not going to believe this, do the calculations on a calculator and type them in into the cell.
Oh, I know.
It's absolutely, it is the, you know, I don't lose it in the classroom, but I was super stupid close that day. I mean,
Control tilde, and it's displayed for God and everybody.
I'm almost wondering I mean, could we kill a lot of birds with one stone if we just had, you know, a quick email exchange of here are the top 10 things I would like students to know with Excel, and then we put together a quick
I think that would
thing
be
like
great,
this
you know,
with an assessment.
on the listserv, you know, but what you're having to do, and we have to face this all the time in OIT, you're having to be your own help desk.
Right.
And when you're providing support, you have to ask the help desk, what are the things you're getting killed on, day in and day out,
Yep.
answering the same stupid questions over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And once you identify what those are, you take the time to illustrate it, demonstrate it, and I would argue, assess it. And I know Katie's right, this is a lot of
Yeah.
work. You said it in your own review,
It
it's a
is.
lot of work. But what I think the advantage, or at least it has to be the argument that we say about these hybrid courses, is that the upfront development time has to pay off the second, third, and fourth time that you teach the course.
Right.
If it doesn't,
Right.
a lot of this is just work that is it's not worth it. But if we were to kind of send out onto the list, what are the top 5, top 10 Excel,
Across this,
you know, gotchas that get, that are bringing everybody to their knees. Let's identify them and let's find out what resources exist outside, what, need to be customized in terms of a tutorial, and then let's do, how would you assess to make sure that students have it?
Well,
That would be a huge service, not only for your class, but I think for the community.
but two comments about that. The first one is, it's my perception, and I come from an accounting background, so maybe this semi-related econ world can chime in on that as well.
But that's the whole point of these.
Oh, I understand. But the top 10 things for accountants are different than those top 10. Okay.
I think just basic, how do I open the program? How do I calculate in it? How do I, open up a new worksheet or, I think.
Talking basic.
Okay.
I think it could be
Okay,
basic.
you're down
basic
below
issues.
where I was thinking.
Yeah, hidden stuff and things like that.
Because for the
But
accounting
thing-
folks,
There are the things like Chris says that stop you in your tracks.
And
Right.
if a student doesn't have you to ask, that's something you could solve in 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Man, they're stuck in the trap. They have to sit there and they have to spend time trying to figure it out on their own. There's some utility in that. But if you want to get past that, your expectations are up here and they're spending their time down
Yeah.
here. It's
And are
just
you
simply
saying that
not
there
worth
really
it.
aren't tutorials available?
I beat the web all the time. I find
About-
them. The question is assessing it.
Yeah. It's sort of becoming a prerequisite for a class that uses Excel.
yeah.
How
Well,
do you assess that?
my observation is that when you ask the students to take the author's template and simply complete it, there are no templates in the real world. So that serves no purpose. So I do not let them use them. Even though they have access to them, I do not let them use them. I want them to take a clean, blank file and set it up correctly all the way to when you email it to me, when I open it and click on print, I get a finished product. The margins are right, the headings are right, the calculations are right. It's something you can trust. And there are some things that the accounting community likes in a way that that's done that would be different in other disciplines. But that's a level above what you and Chris are talking about.
All right?
And I know you can't apply, like each discipline obviously has its own, how they're using it. I actually do teach Excel in my intro technology social work course, and they actually have to calculate their GPA. That's something very simple that they can at least illustrate to me that they know how to sum, they know how to multiply, they know how to divide on a spreadsheet, and it's their GPA. I also see it as kind of an asset to them that they can calculate, they know how to calculate their GPA. I know that's something that is calculated on UMBC, but how do they come up with that number? And certainly if they're transfer students, that isn't calculated into their GPA. So that's
Right.
one assignment that I have done that they have to submit. I do a video tutorial in Excel, and then they have to submit that assignment, that Excel spreadsheet to me. With, like you said, a title, with their name in it, header, page header, footer, all that stuff.
Right.
All righty.
Okay.
Thank